Hey guys, it's Harley Wood. So I get asked quite often about the triggers that I have in these ARs. You see them in various videos when we go out shooting and do different things. And I'm going to go ahead and do a video on the 4 different trigger systems that I have in each of these firearms. So I'm not going to go over the guns themselves. I've got videos on some of them. But here we have a Triggertech flat blade. Here we have a CMC flat blade. Here I have a Geissele SSA. And on this one I have a Timney trigger. All of them are, this one's 4.5 pounds, the others are about 3.5 pounds. The Triggertech is actually adjustable from 2.5 to 5.5, I believe, somewhere around there. And currently I think I have it set about 3.5. So as far as pull weights go, they're very similar. They are all for a specific reason in each of these. And I'm going to put them on the vise here and kind of show you the take up, the brakes, the over travel, and go through the kind of the pros and cons of each one. Let's get them on the vise. So first is the Triggertech. The take up is maybe 1 millimeter. Extremely short take up. The brake is very, very crisp, and you saw there was no over travel whatsoever. The reset is, again, maybe 1 millimeter. Let's see what kind of pull weight this one has. .1. This is the CMC flat blade trigger. It's on my 300 Blackout. It is the newest one that I own. Let's go ahead and see how it performs. There is no take up on this. The brake is extremely light, just a slight bit of over travel. And maybe 2 millimeters of reset. Let's see the pull weight. .19. Up next is the Geissele SSA. This is probably, I know I'm going to get crucified for this in the comments, but I got to be honest, this is probably my least favorite trigger in the lineup of the ones I'm going to show you today. It is hugely popular. I'm not saying it's a bad trigger by any stretch of the imagination, but of the ones I'm going to show you, this is probably the one that I just like the least. I mean, they're all fantastic, but this one is 2-stage, and it is on more of my long-range setup. Let's go ahead and see what kind of take-up it has. Again, it's a 2-stage trigger, so you're going to have about 2.5 pounds of take-up. That is probably 3 or 4 millimeters of take-up. The brake is another 2 pounds. Extremely crisp, hardly any over travel at all, maybe 1 millimeter if that. And the reset is a little bit longer than the others, probably 2 to 2.5 millimeters. Now for longer ranges, this 2-stage trigger is what I would prefer though. It has that take up so you can hit that wall, be sure you're on target, and then break the rest of the shot. Let's measure the pull weight. .13. It's advertised at 4.5, so pretty good. Up next is the Timney. This one has a slightly curved profile, much less than a traditional trigger, not quite a flat blade. This is the trigger that I've had the longest, and if memory serves, this is probably the most expensive based on back when I bought it. Now, I have this in a 1522. I don't have a mag block for it, so I'm running it in the magazine, so every time I rack the charging handle, I'm going to have to let the bolt go home. So let's go ahead and see what kind of take-up it has. None. There is absolutely no take-up in that trigger. It is probably the tightest trigger that I have. Let's see the brake and the over travel. The brake is maybe 2 millimeters, or excuse me, the over travel. And the reset is maybe a millimeter. I mean, again, this is probably the tightest trigger system that I have. Let's see what kind of pull weight it has. .12. So which one is my favorite? Well, it depends. I like each of them for different things. I like that the Triggertech is adjustable. With the simple twist of an Allen wrench, I can adjust it, I believe, like I said, from 2.5 up to 5 pounds, or 2 to 5 pounds, and that's nice. Now, I usually try to keep it set 3 to 4 pounds, somewhere right in there. The CMC is really easy to install. It comes with the trigger and hammer pins that actually have set screws that go in both sides, so it locks it in really tight. Super easy. I love the flat blade feel on it. The Geissele, like I already said, it's a great trigger, don't get me wrong, but of these, two-stage trigger is probably my least favorite, but it is appropriate for kind of my longer range setup. And then the Timney. The Timney, I believe, was the most expensive. It is kind of a pain to install. It's not really a pain, it's just a little more difficult than these, because not only do you have to drive these 2 set screws down into the receiver, but then there's kind of these 2 chaser screws that set down on top of those in order to keep them from backing out. And it's just not quite as easy to install. So I like them all. Price-wise, they're comparable, probably within $50 to $75 of each other, but it's kind of different strokes for different applications. You have to make a decision on what's right for you. Well, that's it, guys. I hope that helps kind of give you some ideas on what some of the different triggers are out there, some of the different pros and cons. Some have a lot more take up, like that 2-stage. Some you're not going to have any take up, like that Timney. You're at the wall as soon as you put your finger on the trigger, but it has an extremely light break. I mean, there's been times where, like, honestly, you put your finger on there and it goes off because it's so light and it's not adjustable. The Triggertech, you can back that off to 5 pounds if you wanted to. That's it, guys. I hope that helps. Thank you for watching. Hit that subscribe button below, and we'll see you on the next one.